Hi everyone and welcome back. In this section we're going to get into the hand that we've been holding off onto because it's going to be like a little model all itself. And if we have time, depending on how far we get, we'll just black out the last little area here of this gun. So after these section or two, things will speed up even faster and we'll pretty much be done. So let's just hide my little platform I have here for them. As you can see, since the last section I just went in there and started tweaking certain little things. This will all be finalized in a little bit as well. You can see that this just has a little bit more shape to it, as well as a very front little fender. And if you look at the wheels, they have little tracks on there that just hug the main track underneath of it a little bit better. So let's just hide pretty much everything that we don't need right now. So hide selection, and we're going to zoom in into our characters. And here we're going to convert into a polygon. Just delete that old nerve so we don't need anymore. Now we're going to do some cutting out on the forearm here. I'm just going to right click and we're going to cut out this section right about here, like so. Now we're going to grab our split polygon tool once again, and we're just going to loop it around like this. And up into the top. Grab your vertices and merge those three side faces there. Now just make sure that a little bit of the same distance between some of these guys here. Just on that corner there. Don't have to worry too much about everybody else. So basically what I made was just that little outcrop there. So it just kind of comes in and out. Just like that. And then we're also, while we're here, F8 again. Let's see if we can do this in one shot. Let's go to our front view. Not going to work quite right. We're going to grab our split polygon tool again. You see we have this other shape over here. I'm going to create that as well. So we're just going to kind of make a plate that we did before on a different part of our character. So we're going to duplicate the whole thing once again. Just bring that right over here. Let's get rid of that. Try it again. That's better. And I'm just going to delete certain parts again. So we're left with something like that. Just like we did before, we wanted to have a little bit of shape. Actually, let's just see what this looks like as a subdivision really fast. You can see that it bulges out right on the corners, and that's what I don't want. So I'm just going to add some extra support in there. Let's move my cut face tool this time. Let's just draw a nice straight line right into there. Just a tad. Convert just to see. You can see that it's starting to get a little bit more flat. Still a little bulgy there, but we can do that trick again with our split polygon tool. Just zoom right in there. There it goes. Now again, depending on your model, I've always tried to go quads, but if it's something like metal, where it's not going to have any deformation or anything, you don't have to worry quite as much if you have some quad or tris in there. So Again, it's really up to you as the artist, and depending on, again, if it's an illustration or an actual moving game model. Just little things to consider, just to help speed up sometimes. I'm just going to move this little guy back into position. And just like we did before, we're going to make him a little bigger, so we're just going to center pivot just for a minute. Fill him up just a little. So I'm going to convert. Oops. 3. You see that we have a little edge there. Now we know this guy is going to be popping out just a little bit too far. See how that kind of comes out there? I'm just going to pop him back in just a little. Just use all your views, it really helps. Just to kind of get a little bit more to the edge that we're after. And we'll make this a little wider. But before we do that, I want to get into, again, probably one of the hardest things of this whole tutorial is our character's hand. Let's get started with that. We're going to go to our top view. We're going to basically start off on a whole new piece of geometry. So we're going to right click, we're going to go create, and we're actually going to start off with a polygon cube this time. So there's our little cube. I'm going to make my hand facing our right, looking at the screen, my right, just because I'm a little bit more comfortable with that way than going left. But it's all going to be pretty much the same regardless of which way you do it. We're going to go into our inputs now, and we're going to find where it says subdivisions with height and depth, and we're going to change some values. So I'm going to go to my width here, and I'm going to bump it up to say 2. So we have 2 pieces where fingers can go. Well, let's see how many fingers this guy has. From the looks of it, it looks like he has 3 altogether, 2 fingers and 1 thumb. So that's going to make our life a little easier as well. So we're pretty much ready to go with these 2 on the right here. So these 2 little boxes, 1 and 2. So if we go back into my thing, and now we have to go, let's see which one is depth. Depth is too much. I think it's height, so we're going to bump our height to 3. And our width to 3 as well. There we go. So I just made a little area for his thumb, so I'm just going to move these little guys back just a little bit here, because I want to kind of keep the same width, maybe a little bit bigger for the thumb. That's where the original fingers are. I'm going to grab these 2 little guys in the back there and just kind of kitty corner them in a little bit, just making a little bit of a wrist. And I'm going to right click, select the faces, extrude, center, push out just a little bit, and then maybe just a little bit in again. And that's just going to help us define just a little bit of a area of the wrist as well. So we've done our front and top view. Not the top view, but we need to go to the side because it's going to be a little bit too wide for us. So frame. You grab all your model at this point, and then you can just scrunch it in. Now if you have too much depth still, if you don't like that extra line, you can just merge them together or just delete the one line completely. So again, it really depends. Sometimes I leave it in there, sometimes I don't, but for a hard surface here, we can probably get away from it. Because most of the time that's just for shaping later on. Now, so you have to delete those little extra little guys that were left behind. This guy's going to come back down now. He's just going to kind of center right around there. It doesn't have to be perfect, remember. And I'm just going to scale that up. So we're going to make kind of fingers now. What will be fingers. So I'm going to do a lot of cutting and things like this for our character. So we can actually duplicate this a few times. What duplicating will help us do is just be able to help us create things a little bit faster. So I'm just going to bring up that. I'm just going to hit G. I'm going to bring that up 3 times. So I'm going to go back to our original. I'm going to make a cutout for some fingers to start protruding. I'm going to do them individually. So I'm going to grab the first 2, extrude, and just a little. And G push back just a little. something along that lines, and then delete. Do the same over on this side. And kind of eyeball. About the same, because it's manufactured, it'll probably be pretty close to the same size as most metallic and manufactured machine parts. And delete. Now we're going to come over here and do the same thing for the thumb area. What will be the thumb? That's why I kept that little area just about the same size. And push back. G. And delete. Grab our first little tube up here. This time we're just going to grab an individual one. I'm going to delete the rest. See, it just saves a little bit of time doing it this way. Grab this, go to your top view, center pivot. You're going to scale so it fits just inside there. And I'm going to right click. So move it out just a little so I can grab it. Select the face. Extrude once, really shallow. G. And grab them again if you're selected like mine for some reason. G. A little bit longer. Say to about here. Now we need to adjust this a little bit. So we're going to grab our cut face tool because we need to put an area where it's going to connect to our little knuckle. So we're going to grab our face, cut face, and add a line there, add a line around there. Now if they don't look like they match up, easy trick to do is you just grab your vertices. You can just kind of match them up real close and then just kind of pull them apart. It's not 100% perfect, but it's close enough. Grab our split again. And our split with our cut face. You're going to add a new line right there. And if you want, depending on how crisp you want these lines on your fingers, you can add another line there. Right now, this guy is okay for now. We're going to grab just this face only, and we're going to go extrude. First one out just a little bit, hit G. Extrude again a little bit farther. And G one last time. Now we might have to adjust that depending on the next part. So you see how we built a bit of a finger here? So what we need to do is build the other parts. So we can just duplicate this section now. I'm just going to come over to here, and I'm just going to leave it right about there for now. Come back to your top view. I'm going to grab our cut face, and then a new line right about there, and another one right about there. Right click. We're going to delete those lines in there. Now if you want fingers, or like say a little grabby thing on there, or just a cover, you can go in and just delete that little bulgy area here as well. So it really comes down to you and your image plane. Like I say, image plane looks like it has some wires and stuff like that, but I'm just building the mechanics underneath it that's going to work for us. So I'm going to grab our first thumb, our first finger again. I'm going to make it just a little bit skinnier. Or you can do vice versa depending on how you want it. Let's have this area right here. Kind of just scroll in just a little bit so there's a little bit of an angle. Before I do that, I'm going to grab my cut face tool again. I want to really make sure that that edge stays nice and crisp. So I just added some little support That way I can go in and just grab these 4 little guys. Just like that. I'm left with something similar to that. Alright. So now that we've made our character here, have no little protrusion at the very front now, we just got to fix that. So again, simple modeling. All the way across, we just got to merge those lines together. Turn on your X-ray. Click, select vertex, just like we did in earlier parts. This is why I leave hands to later on, because they're pretty much a brand new model that you have to be concerned about. Grab your edges on the other part of the little finger here. Extrude. This time I have to do a couple, so you got one layer. G. Click vertex again. Merge. There we go. So there is our first finger. Now you will notice that it is a little large, so we're just going to bring this back down to where it's going to work with our palm. And we can duplicate our first finger as well. Before I do that, I'm just going to grab them both and duplicate. There. Now the thumb can be a little bit different sometimes because you only have one knuckle. So we can actually create a sphere. We're just going to add just a little thing that's going to help him rotate his thumb a little easier. I'm going to put it on a sphere. I'm just going to bring it back down. Remember that end sweep from the very first section. Just bring this over here and turn your X-ray off so you can have a little bit more control over how placement. So this little sphere that we're making here is going to sit just inside this little area. In this way, the robot can move his thumb up and down and all the areas of rotation that he needs. And just like before, it's easy enough to shape and modify. I'm going to add an isoparm. We've done all of this before. Add another one. Actually, don't worry about the other one. We'll just add one for now. Instead of adding it, I'm just going to cut. So we can delete all of that inside work. Then you're going to grab the outermost hull. Remember we did one hull before, a couple? So you want the outermost one. I'm just going to bring that out there. See how easy and simple that was? Now we can go add a new isoparm right around in this corner and this one. And I can insert those. A new little guy right there. So we can grab one of our thumb joints now. Not a thumb but finger. Duplicate. That's fine. Center pivot. Top view. This might be a little bit big still, so I'm just going to shrink it down a little. So you have something like that. we're just going to shift select both pieces of geometry here and just bring again this out just a little bit more. Because you want him to have a long thumb so he's able to move around and stuff like that and grab things. But you can see everything's starting to come together. So now that we have the basis built, because remember his hands are going to be sitting underneath most of this, you can see his little fingers protruding. We can grab it all, Control G to group, center pivot once again, and we can make our hand a little bit bigger here. Now we can go in and place it before we do any of the other final move around. So we're going to drop it down 90 degrees in the negative direction. So basically what we're doing right now is just making sure that it's not too big or not too small. So you know he's going to sit right around that area here. So that is a little big at the moment. And scroll down. He's going to sit back in this area here. We're going to put the hand on a little bit of an angle when we're done shaping it. And like you see it in the picture. But before we do that, all we need to do is just do a little bit more shaping. So while we have our fingertips selected, vertex, make sure you get them both at the same time. All of these little guys on the bottom here. And bring them close. Now if you look at our image plane, they have a little bit of a point to them. They're rounded at the very point. So again, just make sure that you're grabbing both at the same time here. Use your different views. And bring that down. There we go. Yeah, it still looks a little wide for my what I want from. So I'm going to grab everything but the round area that we made with the thumb. Center pivot. Up a little bit again. Now remember, we're going to do the same thing with the thumb. Now don't worry too much. This thing can rotate. That's why we put that round thing in there to hit where it needs to go as far as how a thumb works. So we'll put that down a little bit farther. We can duplicate this a couple times. Rotate it down 90 degrees. Pull that out just a little bit. Center it as well. I'll drop the fingers down in a minute. I'm going to duplicate one more time. Like that. So you can put a little tube in there or whatever you want at this stage. It really, again, comes down to what you as the artist want. Right. So if I grab this section just to show you, hit Control G. Oops. And I can modify center pivot. So I'm going to center pivot, and I'm going to hit my insert button. And if I put it right where the middle of that nerve's there, that we got to change the polygons before we end. Insert. Now we use a rotate button. See how this is going to work for us? See? It's going to work around like that. Again, you get into more detail if you want it to have like a little opening for another gear that's going to twist it. But for this tutorial, again, we're going to keep things kind of simple, just so you guys get the basics happening there. So just like we did for the direction of the fingertips and the thumb tip one way, just going to bring these guys down just a little bit this way. Alright. So again, that's kind of our quick hand. You can go in there and add a lot more detail. You have all the basics and all the right shape happening. I'm just adding more lines if I want to change that later on, as far as adding a little bit more shape in that. And you'll see my final model. I'll spend a lot more time on it like I usually do on the tutorials, so you guys can see the difference that just going to town with the shapes and adding stuff really does make. So I'm just going to move my new hand down just a little bit. Now we're going to go back up into our little fender for our hand here. Convert back into a regular poly. I'm going to make this little cutout here where my hand will be, or my thumb. I'm going to grab my cut face tool and see if we can do this from the side view. Just going to add another line right about here. Let's see how that works. It's roughly in the right area. If it's not, we'll just do it by hand. Bring that back up. So I'm going to use kind of this little guy right here. We're going to add one line using our split polygon tool this time. So up here. I'm going to delete these little faces. Split again. This time, we can go right around, create 4 side faces. There. And we're going to go underneath. That's how it looks. We always got a little bit of pulling when we have open space like that. We can adjust that.